Hi, welcome to my channel, Make It with Miranda, where I make over furniture and do a variety of DIYs. So join me while we get creative and make something beautiful. The first thing you need to do is find the center point of your board. Here I'm working with a 2-foot by 4-foot plywood sheet. So my center is 2 foot over and 1 foot down. Then you need to draw 2 lines, one horizontal from the center and another line that's vertical from the center, creating a T. I purchased a Lath wood bundle from Lowe's to do this project. One thing that's great about this is that you set your miter saw at 45 degrees for all your cuts. I took my first cut piece and placed it in the center to get a rough estimate of the cuts I need to do for most of the board. Here I'm marking to the edge, but I cut leaving a 1-inch overhang. From there, you just continue to mark and cut and cut and cut. And when working with a miter saw, please be sure to wear safety gear and follow all safety guidelines. I like to wear a face mask because I am in an enclosed space and don't want to be breathing in the sawdust. So please be careful when working with power tools and follow all safety rules. Placing all my pieces down from the center point out, and as you get closer to the edges, your cuts will get smaller. For the smaller pieces, I used the excess pieces I had left over from the larger cuts. This project is great because you don't end up with a lot of leftover material. For this design, I was inspired by Alicia English. Please go check out her page. She does beautiful work. And another thing I love about this wood wall art is that once you have done one, you can really mix up the design and create many different looks. From the design, paints, and stains, you can have an endless amount of options. The next step is to measure and cut the pieces to create a design. You can easily find a design you like to recreate or come up with something new. On a piece of paper, I sketched out the design that I was inspired by and wrote down rough measurements. When you are cutting your pieces to make the design, it is important to cut both coordinating pieces at the same time to ensure the design is symmetrical. Please take your time when placing the pieces back, not to mix them up, which is easy to do. You will see later on in the video that I did in fact mix up some pieces, so I had to cut a few new ones and paint and stain them over. The next step is to label each piece. My wall art design is made up of 4 different quadrants, A, B, C, and D. Each of my quadrants has 18 rows of pieces. So on the back, for example, I would write A1B. So I would know that the piece is in quadrant A, it's the first piece, and the B at the bottom means I will paint it black. This process does take a lot of time, but it makes it so much easier to put my pieces in piles to paint or stain, and I'll know exactly where to put them back. Here I separated all my pieces next to the colors and stains that match the labels. You can see the bottom letter coordinates with the color, B for black, W for white, L for light stain, D for dark stain. I used Valspar's Ultra Matte Black Paint, Rust-Oleum's Linen White Chalked Paint, Verithane's Early American Stain, and Minwax's Dark Walnut Stain. My next step is to paint and stain, which is my favorite part. I ended up doing a total of 2 coats with the black paint, 3 coats with the white paint, and only 1 coat with each of the stains. Once all of your pieces are completely dry, it's time to place them back to create your wall art. Before placing them back on the plywood, I separated them into their respective quadrants, A, B, C, and D, to make it an easier process. But this part is so much fun, it's almost like putting a puzzle together and getting this beautiful work of art. I was so relieved at this point that I grabbed my camera to take in all the glory of this wood wall art, and it wasn't until I reviewed the footage that I noticed that I had mixed up a few pieces. If this happens to you, don't worry. All you have to do is remove the mixed up pieces, cut new ones, then paint and stain them to match. Now it's time to glue and nail it all down. I used Titebond 3 Ultimate Wood Glue from Lowe's. This stuff is amazing. I set my metal ruler creating a straight edge at the center line and I clamped it in place. Then began gluing the mirroring pieces down. Be sure not to overload on glue because you can have excess come up between the cracks. Take your time with this process to make sure you place everything down symmetrically. After one half of the design was glued down, I got my nail gun and nailed the pieces down. Now it's time to trim the excess off. I flipped my board over and used a 2x4 to create a guard and guideline for my jigsaw to follow along. Again, please be careful when using power tools, wear safety goggles, and take your time. You're almost there. It's time to measure and cut the wood for a frame. This will polish the look off and cover the cut edges in plywood. Once you get your measurements for your length and width, use your miter saw to cut 45-degree angles on each end. I then clamped my frame into place to make sure it fits and looks good. Then stain or paint your frame for your desired look. Here I went with Minwax Dark Walnut. Once the stain is completely dry, clamp down your frame and nail it into the plywood. You can also add wood glue before nailing the frame in place. It's finished. I absolutely love how this turned out, and I think the little imperfections give it a gorgeous rustic feel. I enjoy making these because you really can create many different looks and designs. And if you like this video, please give me a like, hit subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.